see you all today. If we haven't met before, my name is Colin. I'm the pastor here at Branches, and it's just a joy to be with you today. We're just so glad that you're with us in this fourth Sunday of Advent, just a few days, hey Roscoe, just a few days away from Christmas. And so we're just full of joy, obviously, just full of joy during this season, and we're so glad that you're here, especially if it's your first time here. If you would, scan the QR code on the screen, or there's a card in front of you that says Connect. You can scan that QR code and let us know that you're here today. It would get you on the email list. We can connect with you, let you know what's going on in the life of our community. We're just so grateful that you're here with us today, and just want to welcome you to this place. I'd love to get to meet you after the service today as well. And also, we'll do announcements at the end, but just to remind you, if you're planning on being here for Christmas Eve or inviting someone to be here for Christmas Eve, we have two services that day. 11, it's the family service. We'll have a pageant and a children's choir, and some of you all are participating in that. We'd love to invite you to be a part of that. Or our 6 p.m. candlelight and communion service. So come to one of those. We'd love to see you and a guest. You've probably heard the phrase before, begin with the end in mind. When you're writing something or you're building something, some sort of project, you're doing something, trying to accomplish some goal, there's kind of all this goal-setting stuff that people are looking at now as we go into a new year, that you kind of want to envision the end. And so I want to begin today's sermon with the end in mind. The end of today's sermon, I kind of want to conclude us thinking about not just Mary, who we'll talk about today, the mother of Jesus, but all of the icons we've looked at, and all the ones that maybe have bubbled up in your mind over the past several weeks. People who are resilient and who are full of peace and love and joy and hope. And those people we identify that show us God's character in the world. And part of that is icons, people who follow Jesus, people who want to reflect God's love in the world, stand with one foot in two places. We sang today, Here Comes Heaven, how heaven is colliding with earth at Christmas. And we want to be people that stand in both those worlds, the now and the not yet. The way things are and the way things could be. The human part of our existence and the eternal part of our existence. The way things currently are and the way things God promises them to be. Now, there's a Celtic tradition, and nobody really knows who coined this term, but I remember a lot of people in seminary saying it over and over again, thin places. Have you heard this term before? A thin place is where the veil is kind of like, it's thin, it's kind of see-through. You can kind of experience God in a place that seems maybe unexpected, or in a maybe even eerie, kind of ominous way. Or if you kind of suspended in your existence, so like, I'm here, but there's something else here. And people that do chaplaincy work talk about the thin spaces, even in the midst of deep grief, or walking alongside someone who's in the hospital. Or when I was in prison as a prison chaplain, connecting with people and kind of experiencing God's presence even in that place, or the joy and the smile of a child, or the laughter of a child, or the beauty of creation. We experience this thin place. You may not know this, but Branches, it's only 2 years old, a few months after that. We're trying to figure this out as we go along. But one of the things we're really committed to, especially in the kind of cultural moment that we're in, is pointing out where God shows up, because for some people, God, church, Christianity, isn't even on the menu. And so that acknowledgement of a thin place is really, really important to us. How can we as people who lead Branches be, in one hand, in Houston, grounded physically here, and also in the hope of heaven in Jesus Christ? And so the leaders of Branches, they're committed to this too. We have a Branches leadership team, and some people are rolling off, and there's some new people coming on. We have co-chairs. Currently, it's Carl Miller and Cindy Donaldson, and this next year will be Carl and Lori Suggs, and so Cindy is rolling off, and we wanted to gift Cindy with something. As one of those people that helps us identify thin places, Joy Hilly is an artist in town, and she makes these beautiful paintings, this series of paintings called Thin Places, this gold leaf line kind of indicating the two worlds separate, but also how the triune God breaks through and helps us see who God is. And so I just want to thank you, Cindy, for being one of those people for me. Yeah, thanks, Cindy. You come. Yes. Surround yourself with people who challenge you and love you and care for you and pastor you and help you see God's kingdom break through. And Cindy truly is one of those people for me. So grateful for Cindy's leadership. You don't know that Branches is what it is because of her and her family and her leadership. And so I'm just so grateful for Cindy and for all the Donaldsons. it's hard for me to preach after this. So thank you, Cindy. I appreciate you so much. We're going to talk about Mary today. But first, I want to do something that this may be easy for Cindy right now. I wanted you to think of a moment where you felt really anxious. Think of a moment where you, again, maybe felt like kind of suspended in time, or your heart was racing, or you felt like you didn't know what you were going to do next or how people were going to respond to you. Just think of a time when you felt really anxious. Pretty easy for me. Happens a lot. Carrie, yeah, she's nodding back there. She's like, yeah, you feel pretty anxious sometimes. Think of that moment. This is my Christmas gift to you, to make you feel anxious. What is it? Identify. What is it that makes you feel anxious? Again, is it a person's reaction to you? Or is it you're supposed to speak in front of people and you don't quite know what to say? Is it because you have some wound and you're afraid everyone's going to see it? Is it because it's a new situation or it's an old, tired situation? Think of that thing. Maybe it's a small thing. Maybe it's a big thing. Maybe it's a life-changing thing, or maybe it's just like kind of a mundane thing that no matter when it happens, how it happens, you feel anxious. Traffic or an unexpected email or the text that says, "Can we talk?" Makes you feel anxious. Now, take a moment as you feel anxious and feel your feet touching the floor. Hold your palms out if you want to and feel the air around them and the weight of your own hand in your lap, or scan from the top of your head slowly all the way down to the tip of your toes. If you're a meditation person, this is common, normal for you. When we do that, when we feel anxious, and then when we ground ourselves, like literally ground ourselves, touch the ground, or we scan our body, we feel our sensations of our senses all over, that's one of the ways. It's not a silver bullet, but it's one of the ways that that sensation of anxiety can start to leave us. We can start to be freed from it. One of the reasons we tend toward anxiety is what a lot of psychologists call negativity bias. I heard a really good description of it. It was really poignant for me to think about. Somebody hands you a box and they say, "There's 15 puppies in there." Nice. Somebody hand me a box of 15 puppies. That'd be great. But there's also a cobra in there. I was like, "Oh no, help the puppies," but that's not the point. There's a box that has 15 puppies in it and one cobra. And our human brains, we're gonna slide toward, not the 15 cute puppies, but the cobra. And a kind of self-developmental kind of growth in our life is how we respond to that situation. Maybe it's this great gift that you get to talk in front of all these people, or you get to exercise a skill or whatever else, this anxiety-producing situation. There's 15 puppies about it, but there's one cobra that you don't know what to say, that you're going to be vulnerable in front of other people, whatever that thing is. And our physical grounding, our scanning, our feeling the weight of our hands, our touching the ground with our feet and feeling that connection reminds us of the puppies, reminds us of the good, focuses our attention then on the gift that it is to do the thing we're doing, or at least the gift to be alive, or the gift of presence, or our ability to say, yeah, that thing is there, but there's so much more. How we show up in our anxiety matters. I can tell you something that brings me anxiety, and probably one of the first moments I felt out of touch, which was really crushing for me, was I was asked by my friend Jay, who's a youth pastor back in Arkansas, to lead worship for a youth retreat. I'll say, this isn't any dig at adults, but like, you guys are easy to lead worship for. Because we probably know a lot of the same songs, and you're not too cool. Doing stuff for and with students gives me a lot of anxiety, because I'm just like, what if they don't think I'm cool? What if they think what I say is dumb, or like whatever else? So he asked me to do this. I watched some videos from Andy Stanley about how to talk to students, which I thought was great, because he's 60 and he's like, here's how you talk to students, and I'm like a 24-year-old pastor. I'm like, tell me, Andy, It was helpful. But I felt so much anxiety about it. It was 2-3 days of me leading worship and talking to these students. And the first night, I get up and I Oh How He Loves Us, John Mark McMillan, a couple of Crowder hits, whatever. And one of the students said hey, can you play stuff we know? Even to say, remembering that moment, I'm like, ooh, I want that kid's name, The anxiety, though, it was it came true. But then for the rest of the week, and this wasn't because I had some like psychological breakthrough or whatever, I was like, I'm just gonna, one, be who I am. Jay encouraged me. And two, I'll be like, yeah, sure, tell me ones that you know and I'll learn them to ground myself. How we show up in anxiety, how we show up in a tenuous situation really, really matters. How we are a non-anxious presence can really rub off on another person. It's a perspective shift. We look at Mary today, and a lot of churches are going to read this song of Mary's, the Magnificat, today. And we read it as this like mighty triumph, which it is. And it is the kind of mission statement of the child she's to give birth to. And it's the life-transforming story that she's now a big major player in, a major character in. All that's true. But also we look around the circumstances, not just in Luke's gospel we read from today, but all the other gospel stories. We read Mary's story, we read Mary's experience. You've got to at least feel a little bit of her anxiety. She's a teen mother with this unbelievable story that she's engaged to Joseph. First she has to convince him, I'm pregnant, it's not yours, it's God's. And then she also has to convince her family and her circle around her. The past few weeks with Ruth and Abraham and Moses, we talked about kind of patrilineal societies. Same for Mary. She was kind of lower on the totem pole than most people. Poor person, young teen mother with this, again, incredible, kind of unbelievable story. She had to convince all of them. And she had to tell this story and dare to say, like, I'm giving birth to God's son, Emmanuel, God with us. This is how God's going to be with us. And she sings this song. How does she sing this mighty, amazing, I'd say, Christmas carol song? I want to read the song to you today and maybe help us crack open what Mary is doing in the song. That might be helping her ground or at least kind of believe away her anxiety. So we're in Luke chapter 1. She's visited Elizabeth, her cousin, and this is what she sings. Mary said, my soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. For he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He's brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He's filled the hungry with good things, and he's sent the rich away empty. He's helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. This is the song that Mary sings, and it's been put to music through the centuries and been retranslated and given over and over again in different voices, and it's a gift to us, the Magnificat, this poem, this declaration, in some way this creed, this call to action, this imperative that Mary gives. And Tim Keller calls it his favorite Christmas carol. It's not sentimental. It's not Grandma got run over by a reindeer. It's not I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. The worst one, by the way, is kind of objectively true. It's a revolution song. It's a movement song. It's a powerful song. It's the heartbeat, I think, for what we'll celebrate and observe on Tuesday. We could spend a long, long time in Mary's song, but here's the things that I've pulled out. She says, my soul magnifies the Lord. It lifts up, it makes bigger God in her life. Look at what God has done. Look at what God has done in my life. Look at what God has done for us. I want to read from Psalm 80 really fast. Psalm 80, if it's, the Psalm's right in the middle of your Bible, these prayers that people prayed, and they're not all positive, fun, Christmassy, but the lectionary, the assigned text for today, has Psalm 80, and it says this: Give ear, shepherd of Israel, you who lead Joseph like a flock, you who are enthroned upon the cherubim, shine forth before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh. Stir up your might and come to save us. Restore us, O God, let your face shine that we may be saved. This is magnifying the Lord. O Lord God of hosts, how long will you be angry with your people's prayers? Yikes. Do this for us. Shine your face on us. Come near to us. Save us. Fix us. You're angry with us. You've fed us the bread of tears. Our sustenance has been our mourning, they're saying, and given them tears to drink in full measure. You make us the scorn of our neighbors. Our enemies laugh among themselves. Mary's song is an answer to that plea. Here's how God is going to show up. Here's how we're going to magnify God, and he's going to come and he's going to make me give birth to a son. That's how he's going to answer this prayer of Psalm 80. It's a perspective shift. Second, she knows who she is, and part of her identity for herself is that she knows she's loved and favored. Her status as God's child, and then also as this favored one who's to give birth to Jesus, is transformed. And Kelly Lattimore is an artist, does icons, a variety of people, biblical figures and not biblical figures. I have like a kind of collage of them, of Kelly Lattimore's paintings. These are all at least depict Mary in some fashion. And we map ourselves onto Mary's story. Male or female, we do so. Just thinking about how God breaks into our lives. On the far left, it's the nativity scene in the rubble of a war, which is familiar to us in Israel and Palestine. Or we see them as a migrant family in the second panel there. Or we see them as a homeless family here in the middle. Or this cosmic, beautiful figure on these far right panels here, walking on water even, being a gift. And we think about our Catholic friends who think they've got it right in many ways that we kind of miss, is this reverence that even Mary has for herself. All be highly favored among women. And these images draw our hearts and our attention to Mary knew who she was, and she said who she was, and we depict her this way. Surely she'll be blessed and highly favored for all of time. She draws attention to what God has done and God's action. She then lists all these ways that God is going to upend the way the world is. Again, thinking about the thin spaces, that the rich will go away empty and the poor will be lifted up, and the kind of structures around how people are organized and given rankings and statuses will go away, and they'll truly know who they are, highly favored and loved by the God of the universe. And then she points back to God and her ancestors and our ancestors and Joseph's ancestors and Moses and Abraham and David, the kind of people we've talked about over the past few weeks, as a pointing to God's faithfulness. As we wrap up this Icons series and thinking about how we have a foot in both worlds as Mary does, in both heaven and on earth, in giving birth to the promise of heaven, literally in her womb, she becomes the kind of stage for which the beginning of this new chapter begins. She becomes the kind of in-between in this thin place between heaven and earth. She becomes the usher between our world and the next, the one that's colliding with ours, as we sang about today. We're invited with Mary in her song to point back to God's faithfulness to the saints of the past. We can go all the way back to Abraham, or we can just go back a couple of generations to maybe your grandparents, or a mentor of yours, or a pastor that you had, or somebody who had a quiet, resilient, beautiful, strong faith that didn't get the credit and the recognition they deserved, but they did from God. They're highly favored and blessed. They see how the world doesn't have to be this way, it can be turned over, and they're agents of that. We deliver gifts for Angel Tree, or in a couple of months, if we have a group of people for Jubilee Prison Ministry, go and tell people in prison, incarcerated people, that you're loved and highly favored by God, and God is near you and will never forsake you. That's what Mary does in her song, and highlighting God's actions in the past and in the present, being able to identify and have the lenses to see God all around us. The awareness that God is present, that the Emmanuel promise, the naming of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, is a present and real reality. To totally have our perspective shifted. She stands and acknowledges for us, and so does Moses and Abraham, and certainly Ruth and Naomi and Boaz, in between two places, in those thin spaces. John O'Donohue is a writer and a poet. And he writes these blessings, these really beautiful poetic blessings, and this is what he says about thin spaces. It's a kind of an invitation. May you allow the wild beauty of the invisible world to gather you, mind you, and embrace you in belonging. The primary actor there is this world that's longing to embrace us, that's pushing up against this boundary between our world and the next. And the radical, weird, amazing way that God has introduced it is through this family. through this woman, through this person, through then himself embodied in Jesus. The songs we sing matter. The things that we declare over and over again of ourselves and of who God is and of who people are matter. The Magnificat defines Mary. It defines her ministry to the world. It defines her gift to the world. And to be a person that stands in the gap or stands at the boundary between heaven and earth can be a gift to our neighbors, can be a gift to our city, can be the best Christmas gift anyone could ever receive to say, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. Or you are loved and highly favored. Or God has done these great things and he's doing great things now. That is a gift. That is a song that we can sing together. I thought about gifts this week. Last year we talked about, the best gifts that we've ever received. And just heard a few quotes this week from people that I admire and have learned from about the gifts that we give one another. Of course, there's always one. There's always at least one, even if it's under the surface and I don't give him credit. Dallas Willard said, the greatest gift you can give someone is who you're becoming. That's a really good one. It's also a scary one because it's like, oh, I'm becoming this. And it's not a very good gift. Or Thich Nhat Hanh says, the greatest gift you can give your children is your happiness. That's another gift that we can give. Mary says, the greatest gift that I can give, the greatest gift that I can sing for you, the greatest gift that I can share for you is God is with us. The greatest gift I have to share is this world is going to be upended totally and we'll see it as it really should be. The greatest gift I can give you is that heaven isn't some far off place away from the earth and it's kind of like we have to send messages and they get mistranslated and God can't quite hear us and we can't quite hear him. The greatest gift I can give you is say they're closer than you think. There's this thin space between us and it's identifying it and prodding it and poking it and identifying it for the people around us. The greatest gift we can give is to sing with Mary. God has done great things for us, and he's about to do something amazing, incredible. And the greatest gift we can give is to say, it's God in the flesh with us. The greatest gift we can give one another. The greatest gift, people like Cindy and the leaders in our community, the greatest gift that you can give your family or your children, the greatest gift that we can give this city is to be people who stand in one world and another, who know where the boundary between heaven and earth is, who can see the thin space and call it out when it's unexpected. And people may never paint a beautiful icon of you. I hope they do. I hope people have these beautiful word or picture depictions of who you are and the ways that you pointed back to what God has done and what God did in your life and what God can do. But the greatest gift you can give now is the song you sing today. The greatest gift we can give ourselves today is to hear Mary's song and believe it and trust it and hold on tight to it. And when we grasp it, when we get it, when it changes us, because it will if you read it, I promise, then we can give it to somebody else. We can sing it for somebody else. We can live it for somebody else. We can reflect it into the world for somebody else. And that's a gift too.